Okay, shallow. I'll start gravitation. It's a small chapter. We'll take 4 or 5 lectures to complete this. So let's start with gravitation. See, what is gravitation? Yeah, what is gravity? Take any two masses in universe. Take any two masses in universe, m1 and m2. Say mass of the first body is m1 and mass of the second body is m2. They are, if separated by some finite distance, let us say r, they always exert a force of attraction on each other. I'll repeat, they always exert force of attraction on each other. So m1 and m2 are two masses. They are separated by a finite distance r, right? They attract each other. They will exert a force on each other. This one will experience a force due to this one, and this one will experience a force due to this one. So force acting on one due to two is F12, and force acting on two due to one is F2. So they exert force on each other, right? Why do they exert force on each other? No one knows. They say they attract each other. So question is, why do they attract each other or exert force on each other? No one knows. They say they attract each other by virtue of gravity. They attract each other by virtue of gravity, right?
Yes,
And
sir.
the force acting between them is known as gravitational force. So I'll write a statement. See, two objects of some mass, two objects of some mass, when are separated by finite distance in space or wherever. I'll repeat. Two objects of some mass, when are separated by finite distance in space, exert force of attraction on each other without any physical contact. Without any physical contact. The property by virtue of which they attract each other, is known as gravity. That's it. So this is what you have to understand. I'll repeat. So two objects of some mass, when are separated by finite distance in space, right, exert force of attraction on each other without any physical contact. And the property by virtue of which they attract each other is known as gravity. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Good. Now you know gravity, right? So gravity is one. Gravity is the property by virtue of which the two objects of finite mass separated by a finite distance exert force of attraction on each other. Clear? Okay. Now I'll write few points in it about gravitational force and the force of pull actually, which they apply on each other is known as gravitational force. So let's discuss some points on gravitational force.
Sir,
The
you told
first thing
today you will tell about why two objects fall at the same time with different masses.
sorry, what do you say?
Sir,
Two
you said
objects.
today, yeah, two objects when they fall with different masses, they reach at the same time.
I said that. Okay. It is there in this chapter, but like it will come in at least two lectures. I'll need to reach there. I'll explain it. It is there in this chapter, but I don't remember. I said I'll explain this. Anyways, I'll explain. I'll come to it. Let me write a few points. I'll explain what is gravitational force. How do we measure gravitational force? Kepler's laws of planetary motion, and then I'll come to it. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So gravitational force. The first thing which makes it special is non-contact force. The first thing which makes it special is non-contact force. See, many forces in nature are contact forces and some of them are non-contact force. For example, muscular force. Muscular force is a contact force. See a glass kept on a table. If I ask you to lift it without making a contact with it in any form, like neither directly nor with a stick or something. So if I ask you to lift it without making any contact with it, will you be able to?
No, sir.
No, because muscular force, which you know how to apply, which you're capable of applying, is a contact force. Friction. Friction is a contact force. It always acts between the two surfaces in contact. Right? Normal reaction is a contact force. So all these are contact forces. Whereas some forces in nature are non-contact forces. One of the examples is gravitation. So gravitational force is a non-contact force. Electrostatic force, force acting between charged particles, that is non-contact force. Force acting between poles of magnet, those are non-contact forces. So these are few examples of non-contact forces from our daily life, right? One is gravitational force. To gravitational force, the first thing I'll say about it is non-contact force. Okay, clear now?
Yes, sir.
Then this force is always attractive in nature. This force is always attractive in nature. If we talk of gravitational force, then due to gravity, any of the two objects, whatever be their mass, irrespective of their masses, will always attract each other by virtue of gravity. If you talk of electricity, like charges repel, unlike charges attract. If you talk of magnetism, like poles repel, unlike poles attract. But if you talk of gravitation, this force is always attractive in nature. There is no repulsion in gravity. Got it? So gravitational force is always attractive in nature. Then it's a long range force. It's a long range force. Long range force. That means an object can attract other objects even from large distances. From large distances. Distance between sun and earth is very large. The distance between sun and earth is very large. 1.5 into 10 raised to 11 meter. Right? Approx value. But still, sun manages to exert force from that distance. So gravitational force is a long range force. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Then Newton's laws of motion are applicable here also. So not only the larger object attracts the smaller one, but smaller also attracts the larger one. And force acting on 1 due to 2 is equal to force acting on 2 due to 1. Right? So Newton's laws of motion are applicable here also. The third law of motion was to every action there is equal and opposite reaction. So there are two bodies of masses m1 and m2. So m1 exerts a force on m2, m2 exerts force on m1. The two forces are suppose F12 and F21. So they are equal in magnitude. Obviously, they are opposite in direction. So F12 is equal to F2. Got it? Then they are central forces. Gravitational force is a central force. See, what do you mean by central force? Suppose there are point objects. Point objects means what? Whose size is negligible. Size does not matters. So the force, this object attracts this one is in this direction and this object is pulled in this direction. So the forces act along the line joining these 2 points. Right? This is force applied by this one on this. This is force applied by this one on this. So the forces act along the line joining the 2 particles. This is the case when they are point object. Question comes, what if they are not point size but extended objects? We call them extended objects. Size matter. So actually there are a lot of particles. This particle is pulled by this one, 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 this particle is pulled by. There are a lot of particles which are applying forces on a lot of particles. The question is, where should I apply? Where should I assume that force is acting on this object? So that will be a sharp point. We call it center of mass. We don't have that concept in our syllabus, but you can remember it as a term. So there is a word center of mass, right? So we assume that this force, many forces, all the particles of this are applying force on all the particles of this. But we can assume that sum of all those forces is acting at one point that is known as center of mass. Got it? Hello.
Yes, sir.
So always, so the force is central force. We assume that there is a point. We call it center of mass on this body and center of mass on this body. They exert force on each other. So we call it center of mass, and the forces are known as central forces. Got it? Now this is very important. Force acting on one M1L, right? Due to M2 is independent of medium or objects around them. This is important. Just read it. I'll be in there in a minute. I'll explain this. See, force acting on M1 due to M2. This is object of mass M1. This experiences of gravitational pull due to this one. The force acting on 1 due to 2 is independent of what you have in surrounding. You have some other mass here, M3. You have placed it in water, inside water, or there is vacuum between, or there is some air between. The force acting between the 2 objects is independent of anything. It does not depend on they are kept inside water or they are kept in air or they are kept in vacuum. Wherever they are, this gravitational force is independent of the surrounding medium. If there is an object of mass M1 and M2, this will apply a gravitational pull on this. If there is one more mass, M3, so this is also going to apply force on this. But this force will not be affected by this force. Right? Both of them will apply. Getting my point? See, suppose this was applying a force of 100 Newton. Other object also comes and is now applying a force of 200 Newton. But this will still continue applying force of 100 Newton on it. Okay.
Hello, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It was lagging, but then now it's fine.
Okay. Okay. So force acting on M1 due to M2 is independent of medium or object around them. Clear? So these are some properties or points which you must remember. Achha, one more point is that actually among all the forces in nature, among all forces in nature, among all forces in nature, gravitational force is weakest force. Gravitational force is weakest force. We say gravitational force is weakest force in nature. Clear? Gravitational force is weakest force in
Sir, how is
Yes,
it the
sir.
weakest force?
it is actually if you consider two natural bodies. Natural bodies means what? Not natural bodies. I should use word fundamental particles. Fundamental particles are electrons, protons, and neutrons. If you take two electrons, separate by them some distance. Now these electrons attract each other by virtue of gravity. Simultaneously, they repel each other by virtue of electricity. So if you compare the forces, which force? Electric force and gravitational force. So gravitational forces many times lesser than the electric force acting between them. This statement is given with reference to this statement is given with reference to fundamental particles. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Huh? This statement is only valid for fundamental particles. Tomorrow you should not say, sir, this is Earth, this is Moon. Right? This exerts a very strong gravitational pull on it, but they don't exert electric force on each other. So electric force is zero, then how it is weakened? So this is in reference to fundamental particles. If there are two protons separated by some distance, then they apply electric force as well as this one, gravitational force. Right? So gravitational force is several times lesser than or weaker than the electric force. So these are few points which you must know about gravitational force. Okay. Now, Kepler's laws of planetary motion, with help of which Newton gave his law of gravitation. Kepler's laws of planetary motion. One second. The topic is Kepler's laws of planetary motion. Right? Kepler's laws of planetary motion, on the basis of which Newton gave his law of gravitation. Right? So let's see what those laws are. Planetary motion is a topic of interest since hundreds of years, maybe more than that. Right? We all know, like a long time back, it was believed that sun revolves around Earth. Everything is revolving around Earth. A lot of theories are there, right? First successful explanation was given by Kepler. He gave a good explanation for planetary motion. What he suggested? What he suggested that only for solar system. He gave the explanation for solar system. All planets revolve around sun in elliptical orbits. Elliptical orbits with sun at one of its focus. I'll repeat. He suggested that all planets revolve around sun in not circular, elliptical orbits. Once again. See, so all planets revolve around sun in elliptical orbits with sun at one of its focus. Means what? First, let me explain what is ellipse. Circle, you know, right? Circle, you know. We
Yes,
have
sir.
some. We have a point which is known as center, and this is known as radius. There's a curve which we read as ellipse. Detail of which you'll study in higher syllabus in 11th standard in maths. So this is what we say is ellipse. Or sometimes you call it oval, right? So ellipse has two lines of symmetry. This is one line, it is symmetrical about this line, it is symmetrical about this line. This we call as major axis, this is known as minor axis, right? These are two axes. This is major axis of ellipse, major axis of ellipse, and this is known as minor axis of ellipse. There are 2 points on major axis. These points are known as focus. Plural form is foci. This is one focus and this is one focus, right? So this curve is known as ellipse. There are two lines of symmetry. We call them major axis and minor axis. There are two fixed points on major axis to which we say are focus. This is one of the focus and this is another focus. So what's written in this law? If this is sun, then all the planets revolve around sun in elliptical orbits. All the planets, right? Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, whatever. All of them revolve around sun in circular orbits, and sun lies, sorry, not circular orbits, elliptical orbits, and sun lies at one of the focus. Got it?
Yes, sir.
So it's not circular orbit. Distance between sun and other planets keeps on changing. Distance between sun and a planet keeps on changing with respect to time. At some instant, it is at nearest distance, and nearest distance would be somewhere here, and furthest distance would be here, right? So at some instant, they are at nearest distance, and at other distance they are at furthest distance, right? The 2 points are also read as aphelion and perihelion, right? When the distance between sun and the planet is least, the nearest point, right? We call it perihelion, and when it is at furthest distance, it is known as aphelion, right? So
Yes, sir.
distance changes with respect to time. Yeah.